Just for demo purpose, like I'm taking a notepad. Okay. Yeah. Basically, see here. So today I'm going to be covering functions. So first of all, what do you mean by functions, Arante? A function is a set of lines of code to perform a particular action. That means if you want to trigger a particular act, a task or a particular a logic, so that we can mention as a function. And why we will make the function, or what is the, like, what is the scope of the function? Like, why can't we write the logic as usual, like yesterday, like before classes, how we were writing the logic? So why can't we write the logic the same way? So why especially we are introducing functions? So for that I can say there is a few pointers, Nana. So one is basically reusability. So whenever you want to reuse the code, so that we can done by functions only. That means whatever the code you want to repeatedly create, like example, you want to validate mobile number is valid or not, or you want to check that whether the person is valid or not, or you want to fetch the information from the database, or else like for maybe you are just checking that whether the given number is prime number or not. That for all that kinds of, we should write some lines of code as a logic, definitely. So if you want to reuse the same logic in multiple programs or multiple applications of the project, so then we should make that as a function, and we should able to recall the function without rewriting the respective code. That is the major advantage of the functions. When you go for loops, that also will repeat the code but the same set of lines. But here the code wherever you have, we can call and we can use whenever it is required on demand. So that is the first advantage. And the second one we can say modularity. So modularity means, like, instead of writing entire code in the single program, you may divide the program into multiple sections, or I can say that multiple functions, so that the modularity, or else the splitting of the program can be divided into smaller chunks, so that everyone can easily understand what exactly the logic. And similarly, at the time of debugging, I can say that when we found some issues or some errors in the program, we can easily debug them, because a small chunks we can easily understand, we can try to fix them easily. And also it may not impact due to the problem in one portion of code to the other portion, so that we can achieve by using these functions. So that is the second advantage, modularity. And third advantage is, as I mentioned already, code independent. Means we can create multiple functions independently, so that each, like for example, if you have problem in one function, that might causes in the one function only, it does not impact the other function. But when we jointly write all the code at one place, if we have any problem with one line, that might cause, or that might impact the other lines of code after that error executed. So as we know, Python is purely interpreter based language, so that if you have got problem in the first line, it won't go for the other lines to execute. So that's why functions will help you such kind of fixing. So that is what exactly I can say, that error fixing. So we can easily bug fixing, we can do that easily in the when we are using the, I mean to say, functions. Okay. So that is the next advantage. And lastly, so it is target to single actions, so that we can easily remember, we can easily write the logic independently whenever required. So single action functions we can call. Okay. So these are the different advantages what generally functions showcased in the real time, so that most of the times whenever we were going for designing any project mainly, so we will write the entire code in terms of functions only. Okay. So that functions, whether it is working or not, to verify that, we will also perform the unit testing, that is code level testing we called. So code level testing or unit testing in meaning, so we can perform the testing individual, every function what we written in the project is working as expected or not. Okay. So that is we call unit testing also. Okay. And now what do you mean by functions? And as I mentioned, a function is a set of lines of code. Okay. Set of lines of code. So that means it may have some group of lines of code or instructions, to perform so a specific action, to perform a targeted action. That means, for example, if you want to do the sum of the two numbers, so then we can do the logic for sum of the two numbers. If you want to check the whether the given number is prime or not, so like that, for a particular action, if you want to perform that, all lines if you keep as a one block or one set, then we call it that particular only function. In better word is in still named block, you can say that named block of lines. So that is what we call function. Okay, and now syntactically how we will define function in Python, sir? And first we will write the def. It is a keyword in Python which is used to define the functions. Okay, so whenever you want to define the functions in Python, we should always start with the def keyword, and after that space, and then you should write function name. So it is as you require, you can give your own name, no issues, but as I mentioned already, name always should represent action, because if you're doing the addition inside, but if you given the name as subtraction, Python compiler wise or interpreter wise, it doesn't make any errors, but to understand and to read such program, it is very difficult to understand by the end user. So that's why always give the functions names as the action what you created within the function. And after that we have arguments. So arguments are different types we have, later on we'll discuss. Like first thing, arguments are used to provide the dynamical input to the function. That is first you need to understand. Means with arguments you can write the function, without arguments also you can write the function. So if you want to give the some input to the function dynamically, so we can use the arguments, otherwise no need of arguments. And these are different types, we'll see later on how, what are the different types and how can we pass the different types of inputs to the function, we'll see. And then you can write some logic over here. Okay, so whatever you want to define as part of the function, you can write it down. Okay, and then finally again optional, there is a return result. So it is also again optional, so if you want to return the result, you can return, otherwise no need of that. So here in this function, if you observe that, so two things, one is args, another one is and return value. So these two are optional in the function. So that means you can write, you may write, you may not write. It's not at all required for every time program. So it depends on your requirement. You can define it, you can skip off the particular arguments and return. Okay, so the return keyword generally used to throw the result, but we'll explain deeply once again one by one. But as of now, this is the syntax what generally we used. And after that, like one more thing is, like whatever the function we are creating here, it is only creation, it's not execution, remember this also. That means whatever the function we created here, it will be there in the program, but it won't be executed, it won't be getting any output. So if you want to see the output, if you want to see the like result of the respective function, you need to execute it. Okay, you need to call that. So you need to execute or you need to call it. So for that you require to again write the function name followed by again arguments. So now this line whatever we are having here, it will call the respective function what we created over there. So it is creation of the function and it is execution of the function. So as of now any doubt please ask me, otherwise I will continue little more deeply. As of now any doubt for anyone? Any doubt as of now? Yeah, just 1 minute, please wait. Yes, no, no. So whatever the function we created, it won't execute automatically. So as I mentioned in the previous, so it has to call by the name of the function which we already created. So that is the way how we will call the function. Now once you create this function in the one program, that can be executed in wherever you required in the program by simply calling by the name of the function. So that is how we will generally execute it. Okay, and here We'll see. With see, as I mentioned, right? We can return the value. We may not return the value, and we may pass the arguments. We may not pass the arguments. So that difference, how it is differentiated with output wise, we'll see now. Programmatical. Okay. I will take very simple example. That is some of the two numbers only, so that you people will understand very easily the same component. Yeah, new Python file I'm taking. So here I'm taking some. Okay. So in terms of functions, I want to write here. Yeah. So now you see I'm writing definition. Okay. Do I'm writing some do some. Okay. So again I told you, right, it's a name, just a name. We can write anything, but it's better to keep on maintain what you are doing like that. Okay. So now what I want to do here, see two things. First here, if I want to do the sum, definitely we require some input, right? Like example, if I want to do the sum of the two numbers, we require two values. If I want to do the sum of the three numbers, we require three values. Like that we require some input, so that I'm passing as a comma b. And one beauty of the Python is you need not to define the data types, as I already previously mentioned, like as like Java or C language. You don't require int a comma int b or float a comma float b, something like that. You can just write a comma b, that's all. So now that means this sum function can take two arguments, that might be numbers, that might be decimals, that might be string, anything it might be. So that is the reason Python by default in every function it supports overloading. That means the type of the argument, it is not restricting to, as an end user you can pass anything, but only it restrict number of arguments. For example, if I'm passing a comma b, means it is accepting two only, it doesn't take the three or doesn't take the one. So like that you can pass the arguments. Now I want to do the sum of the two numbers, so a equal to a plus b, and simply we can do print c. And here whatever the code we are writing, so here just I'm taking the input, I'm printing the values, but I'm not writing any values over here, if you observe that. So that means whenever you are taking the input and printing in the function itself, you know how to return, but it's not mandatory, but you need not to return the value because already it's printed. So in that case, simply you can call the respective function by passing the inputs to the function, like as I mentioned. So it is expecting two inputs, so you can pass the two inputs. So likewise, how many times you want to run the respective program, so that many times you can pass it. And even as I mentioned, Python has special feature, like see, it doesn't have any in other functions, other languages, no? So but it is there in the Python. See, for example, here I'm taking first two types are integers, but third one float values are taken, but though the function will be executed. So now I'm trying to run this application. You will get output for the respective three times. See that 33 and 1.2 plus 1.4, it is how much, almost 2.6, right? But somehow it is 2.559 showing. Maybe I'm not sure what is the reason here, but see, but it is expecting the type of the inputs, right? So likewise, whatever the inputs we want to give, that we can pass to the respective program or respective application, so as per our requirement. So now the thing is, for example, for example, same code, instead of print, if I'm using return, how should we handle? That is my point to explain here. So if I'm writing print instead of print, if I'm writing the return followed by C. Okay. So now in this case, for example, as I mentioned already, if I'm printing over that, simply you can call the do sum, right? But if I want to return the value, or if you return the value from the function, then the same print you should write here. Okay. So like this, you should write the print over here. Or else you can store that output in the some variable like x. So x equal to I'm writing, okay. So what is that? Do sum followed by 1 comma 2. So now you can print the x. You can write print x. So here like this, two ways you can do this particular component. Here now, this is the major difference between the with written and without written. So it's very simple, but you need to understand these things. See, same output you are expecting to get it. So the conclusion here is, if you are writing the print in the function without written, okay, then you need to print here when we are calling, or you can store the value and you can print it. Or if you are using the print here itself, then there is no need of print here. For example, if you do the both, yes, you can do, but the output will be printed twice. So because that we don't require, I see 30 30 3 3. So either one is required, right? That's why either you have to follow with written or without written. Any one is fine, but as per your need and as per your program requirement. So, but in real time, mostly 75% will use with written, 25% will use without written. That is the ratio how the functions will be defined in real time application. So like that only you should understand the flow. So but here major point I want to convey that the difference between with written and without written. Okay, so similarly you just want to define the function, but you don't want to define the definition. I don't want to write anything here. Okay, like example, I'm just creating a new function hi, and I don't want to pass the arguments also. So if you want to pass the arguments, as like here, you can pass it. So as like here, you can pass the arguments, but when we want to define the, you don't want to define any arguments, then emptily you can write. And now here, just simply I can write print hello. Okay. So now to call this also, simply you can write hi. That's all. So see that now you are getting hello by calling the simply the name of the function. So now first point, I hope you understand. If you're returning the value, you need to print here. If you're not returning, no need to print here. This point is clear for everyone, all of you. Any doubt as of now? Are you people there?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay, can someone quickly respond so that we can go next? Yeah, the second point here is explain with arguments, without arguments. If you have the arguments, you need to pass the respective data while you're calling the function. If you don't have the arguments, you need not to call the respective arguments. So this is the second point you need to understand. So is this point clear? So it means both are optional. So you can pass, you may not pass. You may return, you may not return. So it all depends on the your requirement or the your program structure, how you are declaring. So that is all about the return types and arguments. But nothing is mandatory. That means it's not that always we should return, we may not return. And similarly, always you should take the input. No, not at all like that. It all depends on your program structure and program need. So I hope you understand, right? Any doubt as of now? If not, I will go for next point.
No, sir. It's clear.
Okay, good. So next one is, there is a like if you remember continue break, we already used the keywords in the looping statements itself to avoid the loop or to block the particular iteration. But as like we have two more keywords, as I mentioned already. One is return, so it is used to return the value or return the result what we are getting from the function, and by that point it will stop the execution. Means after returning, if you write something, it doesn't print, it doesn't execute anything. So for example, here I'm writing some COMP after the return. Okay, so if I'm running the program, you may not see the COMP output at any cost. See that, because whenever we are writing the return statement in any function, by that line it will stop the execution. The after that line, how many lines you return, it doesn't matter, it won't execute anything. So that's why please take care while you are writing the return statement. So return is stopping the function execution, so don't write return unnecessarily. And the second thing, there is a keyword called pass. Like example, def, for example, hello I'm writing as a function. So here I'm taking as a name. Okay, so now I just see I written the function name, but I don't have any logic as of now. I did get understand, I mean I'm still in the process of understanding the logic. I don't have anything to type the logic. So how then we have to skip this function, means by for that only they given a keyword called pass. For example, you are having a confident what is the structure of the function, like what is the name and what is the input and everything, but still you are in the situation to write the program but not yet decided. Then you just make a pass for that, so that along with other functions it is also there in the program, but it won't execute, it just skip the function call and when you are running the code. So like that we can use the pass keyword. So pass means, remember always, it is a keyword which is used to indicating, or which is used to refer the skipping of the function execution. Okay, so like that you can write the function pass or return, but only the difference, return can be used after some few lines of code, pass will be written generally if you doesn't have anything to write. Okay, so any doubt as of now? Okay, so next point I want to highlight is, we can in Python it is also a special feature. In generally outer language like Java, maybe C, we can return at most only one value at a time, but in Python we have a option, you can return multiple values also. Like example definition, let's take something, I can do ABC. Okay, so here just for your understanding what I'm trying to do, see, return 10 comma 20 are written. Okay, that means whenever you are calling the ABC, it is written in the two values, one is 10 and the one 20, like that. No limit how many you want, that many you can return. So now while you're calling this, you can call in the multiple variables the respective function. Now whenever the ABC will execute, the first value what it is returning, that is 10, that will be there in the A, and the second value what you are returning, that will be there in the B. So likewise you can return the multiple values in the Python as per your requirement. So this is 10 and 20 is printed now. Okay, so that is one more beauty of the what do you call Python language with respect to functions. But this feature or this facility we don't have any other language except Python. Okay, so in Python you can return multiple values also. Please remember this point also. Okay, so as of now, any doubts? Yeah. So in arguments also, we have two types basically. One is default argument and the one regular arguments. Like for example, in just definition, okay, let's take, for example, say I'm writing, let's take here, just I'm taking name, okay. Now I'm printing the name, just I'm printing the welcome to name. Okay, so now if I'm calling this say followed by empty, okay, so now what happened, you just observe that you show an error because the say whatever you are created, it has to take the argument called name, but while we are calling we are not passing any argument name. So for example, to fix that you require to pass some argument here. Okay, so likewise you need to pass the argument. So these type of arguments we call mandatory arguments. Okay, so these type of arguments whatever we are writing, these are mandatory. That means if you are not passing the arguments to the respective function, it doesn't allow to execute and it will show an error, that is mismatching of the arguments. But the same thing if you want to make it optional, that means if I'm passing the argument it has to run, if I'm not passing the argument also it should run. So in that case, just you can make it equal to, either you can write a none, if you don't pass anything as a default you can pass it a none, or else you can pass it some default. Like for example, nothing is coming, then I want to print it something Sai by default. So now see, for example, first one I'm taking say Satish, now you are getting hello Satish. Okay, welcome to Satish. Now I'm not passing anything for the second call. Actually initially got error, right? But now see, you won't get any error. Now you are getting welcome to Sai. See that? That means if you are not passing anything, by default it will take this as a value. If you are passing something, then the passed value will consider as a value. So this is what we technically call as optional parameters. So optional parameters means you can pass, you may not pass, but mandatory parameters means you should pass while you are running the code. So that is the difference between the optional and mandatory parameters in the functions. So is this point is clear for everyone? So these are all called key points while you're defining the functions, Nana. So whenever you want to run any function, you should make sure that these all points you should keep in the mind. Otherwise, you may have some kind of syntactical issues. As of now, any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, good. And in the functions, you can write any kind of logic. For example, here I want to check that whether the number is even or odd. Okay. So now it taking an argument called n. So now you can write if n percentile to equal to 0. So what I'm trying to explain, so in within the function you can able to write the conditional statements like if else, and also you can write the looping statement like for and while. So that means whatever the logic you have in the mind, everything you can write as part of the particular functions. Okay, so now you can call it is even or odd followed by 10. I'm writing another one even or odd followed by 11. So likewise you can create any number of functions. See that what happened, yeah, even first number even we got and second one odd. So likewise you can write the conditional statements within the function. Similarly, you can write the even looping statements also within the function. Like example, def multiplication table for given value. Assume that. Okay. So very simple, as we know, for I in range of, so multiplication table start with 1 and with 11, 10. So that I'm writing 11 and print here every time you should multiply with I. So n into I. So for example, I want to print the 2 table. So simply you can call m table of 2. That's it. So you will get 2 table over here. So 2, 4, 6, 8 up to 20. You can able to see here. See that. That is how we are designing the work. So it all, see, that's what I'm telling. The functions is not a different one. It is a component which will be reusable, and the logic what we are writing within the function, that is as usual how whatever you learned up to the looping statements. So logic will be same. So if you want to understand the how we are implementing the logic, you should thoroughly practice the if else along with the while and for loop. But if you want to reuse the code, then how the way of writing the functions you should understand, you should implement. So that is the way, the combination of these all the concepts we are writing in the real time to make it successful project. Okay, so that's why functions and loops and condition statements are very important for implementing your logic. So this is the few topics with respect to functions. So tomorrow we'll see, I mean the next class we will explain what are the different types of functions we have, like example predefined and user defined, and as well as recursion functions we have. And also like there is another type called lambda function will be there, and how can we define and how can we use them, that I will explain. And also like there is another category, one category I explained, arguments, that is default sorry optional parameters, or we can say the default arguments and mandatory arguments. Okay, similarly we have another category like we can pass the data in terms of values, or also we can pass the value in terms of object, that is called by reference, call by value, call by reference. So what it means and how we are differentiating both of that, so that all things will cover in the next class. So maybe by that you may get to some point, so then we can spend good amount of time to examples on functions. And once functions completed, then we can move to the collections, that will be like list, tuple, dictionary, and set. These are the four technically we call as collections in Python, along with strings. So strings means collection of characters that is regularly using, but still we have some inbuilt functions. That is what I'm trying to explain. So that we'll see in the upcoming week. Okay, so please try to do the practice and spend some time on this. If you have any doubts, please ping me. So before closing, any last minute questions you can ask me, or else we can wind up the class. Any doubts as of now?